it's Brands Hatch, it's round 3, it's race 6 of the 2025 Ferrari Challenge UK. In what are ideal conditions, we've had blazing sunshine all weekend. Well, we've got a bit of cloud cover now. Yes, the wind has picked up a little bit, but that's going to certainly make things a lot more comfortable for the cars and the drivers and for the tyre situation, which had a critical part to play in yesterday's racing. Mark Werrell joining you now up in the commentary box, and Jack is alongside me. Jack, cars making their way out of the pit lane onto the grid in advance of this 30-minute race, plus the extra lap thereafter.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. And I think now the track will be effectively at its quickest it has been all weekend long. 38 degrees track temperature, and the ambient air temperature 23 degrees. Still quite humid, but as you say, the track will be slightly nicer on not only the Pirelli tyres, but the drivers as well, and the air temperature will help keep everything nice and cool, albeit the wind has started to pick up more and more throughout the day. But I think we're going to see some very quick lap times.
I think we will, yeah. I think we'll see the quickest laps of the weekend probably coming in this race, which may well be quicker than the qualifying laps now that we've got those cool ambient temperatures. So the cars making their way onto the grid. We always have new drivers coming into the Ferrari Challenge UK, and this year we've got a couple of really quick young drivers that joined the championship. We managed to catch up with a few of them earlier on this season.
One of the young guns making his debut in the opening round at Navarra was Joseph Dean. After finishing 7th on debut, he also impressed on day 2 by qualifying in the top 6.
I feel like I learned a lot, just things to look back on, make for improvements, and go from there, I guess. Navarra was a circuit that we'd never driven before. It's quite a tricky circuit, like medium speed, it's quite technical, and you need to keep concentration, similar to here at Alton Park. I've never really done any sort of professional racing before. I did rental go-karts as a kid, but you know, it doesn't really translate that much, to be honest. So yeah, I did kind of throw myself in the deep end. It's not easy getting into racing, let alone in one of these cars. It's so fast. It's my first season. I'm just trying to spend this first year, just take things nice and slow. Get familiar with the car, get familiar with the circuits. You've got to respect the sort of car that you're in, right? You can't get on the accelerator too quickly because these things have got so much power that they're trying to put down. So it's just about being patient, building into it, and then not getting too ahead of yourself and overdriving.
Callum Leatham had a fantastic debut in Navarra. After finishing 4th in race 1, he claimed a podium in race 2. He's already fallen in love with the Ferrari 296.
It's amazing, to be fair. It's very cool. The car. It's unbelievable. You're just sitting and then you're going like 150 miles an hour just around the corner. It's like, it's scary. Especially this track because it's so thin and there's no runoff really. It's scary. Well, I've always wanted to race and I've never really had the opportunity to because we moved around when I was younger and stuff. And my dad offered me this and I just said, yeah, 100%, obviously. I did go-karting when I was a kid for I didn't do it competitively, I just had my own go-kart and just drove around the track myself, but that was it. I'm on the 3rd row, so I'll definitely try my best. Today I'll definitely try my hardest in the race. Well, my goal was for the first year just to come at least top 5 sometimes, and I wasn't thinking I was going to get anything, just bottom few, but I was happy with Navarra, obviously I was very surprised.
So there we go, Joseph Dean and Callum Leatham, a couple of the young guns we've got in the Ferrari Challenge UK for this year. They'll be lining up on the grid. Of course, the grid is based on the qualifying times that they set earlier on this morning and what were warmer conditions at that point. So let's just have a quick look back at some of the highlights from qualifying earlier on today.
Hope Shell pole sitter.
Gilbert Yates that lap puts him onto pole position. So in qualifying, Mike Dewhurst, 5th overall, but more importantly, Copa Shell pole position going in his general direction for the 3rd time this year, but 14 Trofeo Pirelli pole positions on the trot for Gilbert Yates. So the grid is beginning to form. It's getting rather busy down there. So from the wisdom of Werrells that are collectively together up in the commentary box, let's go down to the grid where we've got Amanda Stretton and Dave Richardson.
Do you know what? I thought there was going to be some descriptive of us too.
I know. What can we call ourselves?
I don't think we even want to go there. Hello, good afternoon.
Laurel and Hardy.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jack. Laurel and Hardy, yes. Welcome to the grid here at Brands Hatch for day 2, where I have to say, you put your jumper on, it's clouded over. It's altogether different to yesterday.
Very different, and also very different to qualifying earlier on today. I mean, although the ambient is still around 25 degrees, the wind chill does make it feel significantly cooler. And as you can see from my hair, which is a really good barometer of the wind, jolly breezy
Unlike
down here
mine,
as well,
which
unlike
isn't.
yours, which, yeah. But it was interesting there. We just heard about the new drivers.
Yes.
We're going to talk a little bit about qualifying as well and what happened. And one of the big sort of stories, if you like, in qualifying was this man next to us, because he had a bit of a problem, didn't he?
Yes, it was really dramatic for Callum. He had an off, there was an issue, the car came back in, and I just want to give a big shout out to the team here who works so hard. Behind every racing driver there is a team, there's a family of course, and a lot of people working really, really hard, including these guys, engineers that were working to get Callum back out again. And in fairness, they did that with I think about a minute on the clock, only for the session then to be red flagged. So it was completely futile. So effectively all your hard work was a waste of time, really, wasn't it? But there we are. Let's try and grab a quick word with Callum. So basically, from a qualifying point of view, Callum, it was an absolute nightmare for you. You're going to have to really dig deep this afternoon, young sir.
I know. Hopefully my start will go well. Try to keep it wide, and because everyone slows down a lot in the inside, like yesterday, so...
Sounds like you got the strategy all sorted, friend.
Yes, well, I was only told like 10 seconds ago, so...
Oh, well, at least you're honest. Yeah. Listen, we wish you well, and go well, Callum. We are thrilled and delighted that you're on the grid. One of those young guns that we spoke about just a while ago, Amanda.
We did, exactly. And starting just ahead of him is the young Joe Dean as well. Another driver that's had a sort of difficult start. You know, getting used to these cars is a real jump, and I think Joe has experienced what's that like. But it's lovely to see Joe. He obviously had the race yesterday, incident-free. And Joe, your plan seems to be working out... Whoopsie, I've just dropped my glasses. Sorry. Your plan seems to be working out really well, because things are going nice and steady.
Yes, just been trying to dial it back this weekend after Alton Park, but I think we found a good pace, and hopefully we'll see this race through.
Good stuff. Well, listen, I hope you go well as well. It's lovely to see so many young drivers taking part in this.
Oh, absolutely, it is. And yes, Joe having a really, really good weekend, solid weekend, I would say. And yes, the work he and his coach are doing and the family are doing, really, really important. And Joe doing a great job. So well done to him. Just yesterday, I mentioned the contingent that's always here supporting our Ferrari Challenge drivers, which is lovely to see. None more bigger and vibrant than Darren Howell's family. So I mentioned them yesterday. I'm going to do it all over again today. And it's also nice to see also across here, large contingents supporting another new driver into the Ferrari Challenge this year. Made his way up from the Club Challenge and doing a brilliant job. That's Paul Dixon. What do you find so darned funny, woman?
I'm just looking at all the ladies.
Right, yes. How very glamorous. It's like a day out at the races, isn't it? It's all really rather lovely. Just missing a hat or two, I feel.
It would blow away in this weather.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Keep on script, Amanda.
Right, okay, so moving on down. Obviously, Peter Hunter had a great race yesterday. You know, we're going to avoid talking to him unless strictly necessary. We love you too, Peter.
I can also just see off of camera to my right-hand side someone that you may think is actually missing from the grid of cars today, and indeed he is missing from the grid, and that's Stephen Dobson. And we can see Stephen there. Come and join us, friend, because...
I don't recognise him without his overalls on. I was going to say without your clothes on, but sorry, Steve.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, we're avoiding talking to Peter, and meanwhile I'm diving in with both feet. Just tell us why you're not out on track, because obviously you had that little incident yesterday at the end of the race.
Yeah, we had a little problem coming out of Druids, and the car's a little bit too second-hand to get going for today. So it's very sad. I wish I was here and regretting the decision not to go, but it is what it is.
It is what it is, but we'll see you out at Donington.
Yes, hopefully. We've got a test at Donington on the 8th, I believe. Ricardo's hopefully going to get the car ready, or AF going to get the car ready. And then we have the race in end of July, isn't it? So yeah, looking forward to that.
Right, just very quickly, obviously you're very used to sort of being on the grid in the car in your overalls. What is it like when you're walking around like us?
It doesn't feel quite right, if I'm honest, but we are where we are. I'm good at cheering everybody on. I wish them all the best, and hopefully they stay safe. So I just want to say hello to Rob Rees, by the way. Rob, if you're watching in Dubai, we miss you.
Hi-bye, Rob. Thanks a lot, Steve.
You're absolutely right, Stephen. Robert Rees, we do miss you. And yeah, for your information only, about 103 days, Robert. You'll be pleased with that. It's a little in-joke between Robert and myself. Yeah, what I wanted to say is seeing Stephen Dobson here on the grid, but not in a racing car, just reinforces the wonderful sense of camaraderie and friendship that are between all the drivers. Now, of course, when they're on the grid and they're racing, they're all in it for themselves, and to heck with friendship, we're here to win a race. But they're all great friends off the track, and that sense of camaraderie, that's not true in every single racing series, is it?
No, absolutely. And I actually think Paul Simpson is a prime example of that, because here's a driver, we might just have a little chat with him.
You wander over.
I'll go over there, because here's a driver who moved from Coperchel to Pirelli. But everybody has been so supportive of your move, and I mean, my goodness, look at where you are on the grid.
Yeah, look, I'm just enjoying myself. I'm pleased to moved up. It felt like the right thing to do, and yeah, look, I'm somehow found myself up this end of the grid, and so yeah, quite happy with that.
Well, listen, go well, enjoy. I mean, I think it's a really great move, because I was talking to him about this on Saturday morning. And I was saying, you know, it's a really good move because it's actually going to encourage him as a driver to sort of really keep pushing. Whereas if you know you're in the lead of Coperchel, you may be inclined to just hold fire and hold position rather than try and overtake cars in front. One thing I noticed, we're going to talk about Pranav, but Gilbert's always like the last car on the grid, or the penultimate car on the grid.
Do you know, he is an enigma worth of study, because Gilbert Yates, it doesn't matter seemingly what you throw at him, he just delivers when he needs to deliver. And I was going to say one of our pieces to camera was going to be, Amanda, and we rehearsed it. What's it going to take away the dominance of Gilbert Yates? One would argue potentially Pranav Vangala, who's right alongside him on the grid, maybe even Paul Simerson, newly promoted to Trofeo Pirelli, so he's got the bit between his teeth.
Well, he does, but I was going to lead in by saying this is strategic. You know, you're not the... this is strategic, and what I have noticed about Pranav is how strategic he is being vis-a-vis his qualifying, when he goes out on track, when he sort of looks for the opportunities when the track is going to be clearer and cars are in having their tyres changed in qualifying. Pranav is trying everything he can in order to knock Gilbert off that 14 pole position streak.
Well, I'm going to do everything I can to avoid being told off by our race steward, Mr. Andrew Rowe, who told me off for being on the grid too long yesterday, so apologies, race control. We are on our way. Stand by. Here come the Werrells then with race 2.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so the grid is being cleared and we've reached the halfway point of this championship season. Gilbert Yates leading the Trofeo Pirelli championship standings from Pranav Vangala and Callum Leatham. And in Coperchel, it's Mike Dewhurst, Paul Simerson and Peter Hunter. Mike Dewhurst, Peter Hunter and the absent Stephen Dobson that are right up there in terms of Coperchel. So off they head on their formation lap. Let's guide you through the grid then and the way that they line up for this 30-minute race, plus the extra lap thereafter. On pole position, it is Gilbert Yates with his 14th pole position on the trot. Alongside him is his main championship rival, Pranav Vangala. And row 2 of the grid, on the inside of that second row of the grid, it is Fedor Samarikov, whose best result so far this season has been 6th position. Could he finish on the podium? He's got the rapid Paul Simerson for company on row number 2. Row 3 of the grid is where we start to see the first of the Coperchel cars coming in, and it's Mike Dewhurst, who is on pole position for Coperchel, lines up 5th overall, and a good qualifying session from John Marcar, his first ever race at Brands Hatch coming up. He will start from 6th position. As we move on to row number 4 of the grid, the inside of that row, it's yesterday's race winner in Copershell, Peter Hunter, who lines up against Paul Rogers, who finished on the Copershell podium in 3rd place yesterday. He will start from 8th place. And then on to the 5th row of the grid. On the inside of row number 5, it's Paul Dixon, and Darren Howell is the man who will keep him company. We move then on to the 6th row of the grid. On the inside of row number 6, that is where we see Joseph Dean, and alongside him is Hussein Sert. Final row of the grid, it will be the man who had those problems in qualifying that lines up on his own on that final row of the grid, Callum Leatham. And of course, we should have had another car alongside, should have been 14 cars, but Stephen Dobson, as we've heard from down there on the grid, is not present. So, Jack, for the second time this weekend, cars making their way around the circuit. We're about to get things underway.
We are indeed. 30 minutes plus 1 lap of brilliant racing action. So what we will do, just as the cars are working their way back towards us, we're going to get ready for the race start.
So here we go then, 30 minutes plus the extra lap. The yellow and red and black car is Gilbert Yates, the reigning champion that starts from pole position. It's the dark metallic green car of Pranav Vangala that lines up alongside. The safety car is about to peel its way in towards the pit lane. The lights are on the gantry, and we're about to go racing for the second and final time this weekend at Brands Hatch. Round 3, race 6 of the 2025 Ferrari Challenge UK. Neat 2x2 order as the way the cars work their way up towards the start-finish line. Red lights remain on the gantry, and as they flash their way out, which they'll do any second now, we're away and racing, and it looks as though both front row men match each other for pace as they head up towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. Gilbert Yates will have his nose ahead as they corner. Pranav Vangala in 2nd place, but he's going to lose out to Fedor Samarukov and might even lose out to Paul Simerson, both of whom are looking to try and sneak their way through. So Pranav tries to brave it out around the outside at Druids. He will hang on to 3rd place. Only just, though, from Paul Simerson, but Fedor Samarukov with a great start to this race, braking very, very late in towards Graham Hill Bend for Pranav Vangala. I think there was a light touch, wasn't there, between himself and Fedor Samarukov, which shuffles the order once more.
Yeah, there was indeed. He was so late on the brakes. Fedor already eyes into the apex, and all of a sudden Pranav Vangala arrived on the scene. It seemed like as well the 77 machine of Paul Simerson, he was there or thereabouts, but just couldn't quite find the grip that he required up at Hawthorns for the first time, currently holding station in what is 4th place. But all of that scuffling has allowed Gilbert Yates to run away in the lead.
It was, yeah, absolutely. I just can't believe this lap, the first lap for Pranav Vangala. You know, 2nd, almost down to 4th, and back to 2nd again. Amazing.
Yeah, and now he's being ushered on, I'm sure, with the view in his rear-view mirror, seeing that both Fedor Samarukov and Paul Simerson are fighting away. That's giving Pranav Vangala the space he needs to focus on catching that of Gilbert Yates, who is already free and clear in the lead of the race, almost by a full second, potentially more by the time they arrive at the timing beam for the first time of asking at racing speed. As for Copershell, Mike Dewhurst continues to lead the way and has got a bit of space between himself and Peter Hunter, and more importantly, a car between himself and Peter Hunter. So Dewhurst can just focus on controlling that class lead.
And the good thing is that car that's between himself and Peter Hunter, yeah, it's one of the Trofeo Pirelli cars. It's John Marcar's car, isn't it? That is the number 16 car just heading up towards Druids now. So that is a big sigh of relief, really, for Mike Dewhurst, who can just focus on what's going on ahead of him and not worry too much about what's going on behind, because he's not under the sort of pressure that he was trying to apply to Peter Hunter yesterday when Peter was the one who took up the early race lead in Copershell. So Gilbert Yates, at the end of that first lap of racing, had almost a 2-second advantage. It was 1.971 seconds that Gilbert Yates led Pranav Vangala by at the end of the first lap of racing. That is getting out of the blocks rather quickly, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And bearing in mind, whilst it was a rolling start, naturally all of your momentum isn't there on the rolling start of the race. Still to be close to 1 minute 29.9 on the first lap. Gilbert Yates absolutely flying. I have to say, what a first lap of the race for Callum Leatham.
Yeah, brilliant first lap of the race from him. Remember, he started at the back after his problems in qualifying. He was up 5 places, came through in 8th position. He'll still remain in 8th on this lap because he's still tucked up behind Peter Hunter, but he's not that far away from getting right up onto terms with him. Over the start-finish line is about to come our race leader, Gilbert Yates, leading the way, and It looks so that lead advantage has just stretched a little bit further between himself and Pranav van Gala that time through. Yes, it has. It's come out by another 9/10 of a second, so it's now up to 2.8 seconds from first to second place. Fedor Samarakov in the first of the black 296s sits there in third place, with Paul Simerson in fourth place, and Mike Dewhurst still leads Coperchel at the wheel of the yellow and the red and the blue car. But the next task for Callum Leatham is to try and pick off another car. That won't give him any more championship points because he's in Trofeo Pirelli. The car he's trying to overtake is the light blue car of Peter Hunter, who runs in Coperchel.
It is indeed, but that can always change the complexion of the battles that he's trying to work his way through. Callum Leatham well and truly has momentum with him. As you say, Peter Hunter, the next car that he will meet. So Peter Hunter will continue to, I think, focus forward. The last thing Peter Hunter will want to do is defend from Callum Leatham, because he's not fighting over points. He would just lose time to Mike Dewhurst, Coperchel leader for the moment. Gilbert Yates, he's on having a slightly slower lap this time, but he's built that margin, so now he can just focus on managing that pace. Pranav van Gala will still want to give chase, but not leave himself vulnerable to Fedor Samarakov, who's on for his best result of the year.
Yeah, manage his pace, manage his tyres as well, of course. Now, the ambient temperature having dropped will help a little bit, won't it? So you don't need to push quite as hard. You're not going to take quite as much life out of your tyre. So Gilbert Yates can now just afford to control the pace at the front and decide as to if he needs to push, when will that happen, and how hard he needs to push. And at the moment, he's pushing hard because he's increasing the gap. It's come out that time through by a full second, so it's now up to 3.8 seconds exactly between first and second place. Already, though, we're starting to see track limits warnings come out, and it's the number 5 car of Darren Howell that's picked up the track limit warning.
Yeah, so Darren Howell clearly pushing on, wanting to keep tabs with the number 20 machine of Paul Rogers. Callum Leatham still hasn't been able to pick the pocket of Peter Hunter as they dive downhill in towards Graham Hill Bend on the brakes, right the way over the curbing was Peter Hunter, going slightly wide through Surtees. By the looks of that was Simerson, but that's given him a brilliant run heading towards Pilgrim's Drop, and that has just allowed him to close in a little bit more onto Fedor Samarakov, which is taking the pressure away from Pranav van Gala. But Gilbert Yates going quicker still. He was purple on the last lap. He's already set the overall fastest Sector 1.
It'd be great to see Fedor Samarakov pick up his first podium of the 2025 championship season. His best result at the moment is 6th place. He was looking really good yesterday, had fantastic pace, but there was just a couple of small issues throughout the race that unfortunately meant that he had to do 2 pit visits just to get the car sorted, and therefore he didn't even finish on the lead lap. He was a couple of laps adrift. So if he could finish in 3rd place, he would be absolutely delighted with that. But there's a huge amount of time still to go in this race, 24 minutes plus the extra lap thereafter. And when he looks in his mirrors, he'll see that Paul Simerson is not too far away, so he can't afford to relax at all. Leading pair over the start-finish line. Lead advantage grows to 4.7 seconds. The squabble for 3rd and 4th place is a further 3.5 back from that, but Fedor Samarakov has got his hands rather full, hasn't he, to say the least?
He does indeed, and he can't afford to give up any further time with Simerson so close behind. I was just keeping an eye on Callum Leatham. He's absolutely flying and just cannot work his way through and past Peter Hunter. Peter Hunter defending almost contact on the exit of Druids. Down the hill they will go into Graham Hill Bend once again. And Callum Leatham, with a flash of the lights, he's filling the mirrors as best he can. He just can't quite find the right opportunity to work his way through and past Peter Hunter, and this is the last thing he wants. It's costing him time, and it's not even for a championship point.
No, not at all, no, because that's a Trofeo Pirelli car trying to squeeze through and past a Coperchel car, and it's where you finish in your respective class in reality that gives you the points. In other words, if you win your class, whether it be Trofeo Pirelli or Coperchel, 15 points. If you're second, it's 12. If you're third, it's 10. And so on, it diminishes from there. There is an extra point for pole position in each class, it's worth mentioning, and there is an extra point for fastest lap as well. And fastest lap has just been set overall in this race by Gilbert Yates last time through. 1 minute 26.378 means that he now is 4.7 seconds up the road from number 29, Pranav van Gala.
He is indeed. So over the line he will go once again, Gilbert Yates. This time the consistency now rolls in. His fastest lap a 26.3, last time through a 26.5. So now working on managing those Pirelli tyres and keeping the lap times nice and consistent. Samarakov still can't afford to give up any time to the number 77 machine of Paul Simerson as they work their way up the hill towards Druids once more. And I think rather frustratingly for Callum Leatham, he's still not managed to get through and past that of Peter Hunter. Further down the order, the number 20 of Paul Rogers, predominantly purple grey with pink flashes up towards Druids. He will go. He's in a good little scrap as well for the moment. He's continuing to apply the pressure on to Paul Dixon.
So Gilbert Yates all of the time just pulling away. 5 seconds to the good. He can control the pace from the front, and once he's built that lead advantage, Jack, I guess the process for Gilbert Yates will be, I've built the advantage now. I can control the race from the front, and he can put his feet up. He can have a coffee. He could have a gelato if he wanted, couldn't he?
Yes, he could as well. Especially if you are Gilbert Yates and that far in front. Thankfully, it's not as hot as it was this morning. If he was, he'd probably look for something slightly cooler than that. With Pranav Vangala currently sat there in second place, he must be getting rather lonely. 5 seconds up the road is Gilbert Yates. 5 seconds behind him is Fedor Samarkov, and Paul Simerson is still in hot pursuit. So they will just start to slow each other down the more they battle. And you can't really rule out Mike Dewhurst. He's in or under a little bit of pressure, not for the Coperchel lead, but for 5th place outright.
Yeah, purple final sector for Gilbert Yates that time through, so he's still pushing hard. He's not leaving a lot on the table. The lead advantage climbs to 5.6 seconds. Paul Rogers, as you're saying, at the wheel of the number 20 car, has got not that far behind him Darren Howell, and those two will be fighting for positions further down through the order. That's for 4th and 5th in Coperchel. Hussein Sert in the all-yellow number 55 car, representing Maranello Sales, is not too far away. He sits there in 13th position. That's a good squabble towards the tail end of the field. Enjoying that one. It's just working its way around through Druids now with 20 minutes remaining.
It is indeed. Paul Rogers gets a very good run down the hill and continues to apply yet further pressure onto Paul Dixon, onto the Cooper Straight they will go once again, and then in towards Surtees, and for the moment they remain as they are. But as you say, Darren Howell, he's just got the best seats in the house for this one. He's just watching it all unfold in front of him, and I think biding his time. Still 20 minutes to go, plus the extra lap come the end of the race.
Yeah, so sitting 3rd in Coperchel at the moment is Paul Dixon, and if he can remain there, that would be his first Coperchel podium of the season so far. Paul driving the number 13 car on behalf of Dick Club at Swindon, of course having graduated out of the Club Challenge from last year. So up towards the braking area for Clearways Corner. It isn't resolved at all, is it, for 3rd and for 4th place? Fedor Samarkov cannot shake away Paul Simonson. He's sitting firmly in his Pirelli wheel tracks as they come over the start-finish line. He's close, but he's not quite close enough, is he?
No, I think Fedor Samarkov will just want to hold station for now, and you can't really see him defending that hard. He's just making Paul Simerson put in the work, but really closes in on the brakes does Paul Simerson on the run up towards Druids. But on the way out, it was just sort of fast in, but slightly slower out from Paul Simerson. And Fedor Samarkov, you would think that he's been racing for quite some time, because he's placing the car perfectly and not allowing the car in his rearview mirror to distract him.
He's had a really strong weekend, but hasn't had the results to show for it at Brands Hatch so far, following his issues yesterday. Can he cling on to 3rd position? Well, he's going to have to really work hard in the remaining 19 or so minutes of this race to try and keep the far more experienced Paul Simerson behind him. Remember, Paul is returning to the championship this year, having taken a year off from it last year. He's a double runner-up in Coperchel as well, is Paul Simerson, having stepped up to Trofeo Pirelli this weekend and finished on the overall Trofeo Pirelli podium in yesterday's race. He's edging up ever closer. The gap was 0.4 of a second. Well, I think it's going to be maybe a shade down from that this time through. Not by much, but just by a little bit. Paul Simonson weaving around in the mirrors of Fedor Samarkov to see whether he can distract him, but he almost runs wide there, coming out of the Clark curve. He's had to get off the power, and all of a sudden, as the gap was closing, it opens back up.
Yeah, given the position that Paul Simerson was in on the outside of Clark curve, very well held indeed. Came out of the throttle, but also didn't unsettle the car whilst doing so, and then could get himself back settled in, and it seems like he's already closed back in onto Fedor Samarkov. Last time through, Gilbert Yates has gone quicker still, a 1:26.255. As for Mike Dewhurst in the lead of Coperchel, he's got Markar, Hunter and Leatham all stacked up behind him.
Yep, so that's the quartet of cars just working their way out of Graham Hill Bend at the moment. Mike Dewhurst with his hands rather full. John Markar having a really good run as well. He sits there 6th overall, but 5th in the race. And Peter Hunter's trying to nip up the inside of him as they went in towards Surtees. If Peter Hunter can get through ahead of John Markar, that then puts ever more pressure onto the man who leads Coperchel, which is Mike Dewhurst, but Peter Hunter tried it. It didn't quite work, and because you try something at Surtees and it doesn't work, it then slows you down all the way down towards Hawthorne, and Peter Hunter has fallen away from the car he was trying to attack and is now fully into the clutches of Callum Leatham, who is weaving around behind him at the wheel of the 95 car.
Yeah, another flash of the lights as well from Callum Leatham, so he's desperate to work his way through and past. However, once he gets there, he's then got to try and do the same thing to John Marquardt in the hopes of getting a point. So or an extra point, all of this work for Callum Leatham isn't going to reward him just as of yet. And John Marquardt, in turn, he's trying to work his way through and past that of Mike Dewhurst. And Mike Dewhurst will want to keep him there, because if he's got a car in a different class separating him from the second place car of Peter Hunter, that's the best position he can be in to try and secure his Coperchel win.
So here comes Peter Hunter. He's having another little look up the inside, going in towards Paddock Hill Bend, but it didn't work that time through. So it's still the same order as they were. Mike Dewhurst in 5th place, John Marquardt in 6th, Peter Hunter and Callum Leatham, who made really good progress, didn't he? In the first lap, he gained 5 places and has sort of plateaued there. He's just not been able to pick anybody else off.
No, he hasn't at all. It's just as soon as he's caught a little battle, he's, I think, inadvertently got involved in this battle. Mike Dewhurst has got John Marquardt getting closer. In turn, he's got Peter Hunter getting closer, and Callum Leatham, I think he's taken a step back to have another look at this, mainly because John Marquardt's now going for the move all the way around the outside of Mike Dewhurst. It was the inside on the exit of Surtees. It'll be the outside at Hawthorne. You've got to be very brave and ask a lot of the Pirelli tyres. This time I don't think it's going to work, but goes for the cutback. In turn, Callum Leatham is to the inside of Peter Hunter. Later on the brakes, is the position finally going to change for Callum Leatham? We wait for them to reappear. No, Peter Hunter, he holds on to 7th overall, but remains 2nd in Coperchel.
Yeah, I think Callum Leatham, despite his relative young age, was just driving with a very mature head on his shoulders there. He looked as though he'd got a run on Peter Hunter, but just decided to back out of it, because I think he thought, you know what, it's just not worth it at this stage. There's still half of the race to go, plus the extra lap. Something might happen, something might happen. So over the start-finish line they'll come. They are still in the same order. And now for Callum Leatham, that actually cost him a little bit of time. That non-successful overtake. He's just got to try and build a bit more momentum, try and get back on the coattails of those ahead. John Marquardt runs a little bit wide, doesn't he, going round through Paddock Hill Bend that time through. And now Callum Leatham having another nibble as they head up towards Druids, up the inside of Peter Hunt, who just, and only just, gets the door closed in time.
Yeah, so it looked like John Marquardt just left that door open. Peter Hunter was there, but couldn't quite jump on the throttle of fears he would wash wide into John Marquardt. So they remain as they are, and Callum Leatham was there on the inside of Peter Hunter, but Peter Hunter, nice and early on the power on the exit of Druids, manages to hold on to that place, and that puts him back onto the coattails of John Marquardt. Dewhurst will be watching his rear-view camera thinking, well, I kind of wish I was involved.
It's certainly a great battle that's going on behind him. He'd ideally think, I wish they were further in the distance and not that close to me, but he just can't get away at all. Cannot get away. And again, down the Derek Minter straight, number 95 car of Callum Leatham weaving around, trying to see whether he can prise the door open, but it's not happening for the Charles Hurst driver. He's still got to sit behind the Stratstone Manchester baby blue machine in the hands of Peter Hunter. Peter Hunter's trying to attack and defend at the same time, because he's got the Grey Paul Birmingham car, the black car of John Marquardt ahead of them, and of course at the front of this queue is another Grey Paul Birmingham car, which is Paul Simerson. So, sorry, which is Mike Dewhurst, I should say. So they work their way over the start-finish line. Mike Dewhurst actually representing Dick Lovett Swindon, I'll correct that. Over the start-finish line now will go. Another lap chalked into the book. That is now 11 laps completed, and our race leader, Gilbert Yates, leads by, well, in Ferrari terms, a country mile. He's 8.6 seconds up the road now.
Yeah, and even Pranav Vangala last time through set his personal best, but was still just that little bit slower than Gilbert Yates. So Pranav clearly looking after tyres, but has the gap got to a point now where we're not going to see Pranav Vangala close in on Gilbert Yates? Callum Leatham has finally unlocked the door on Peter Hunter, but Peter Hunter's fighting back on the brakes into Surtees, dives to the inside, gets to the apex first. Is Callum Leatham now going to look for the cutback? No, they changed, albeit only for the keeper straight.
Yeah, it didn't last long, but it was short-lived for Callum Leatham. Back through goes Peter Hunter, and now that's sort of broken them up from it being a quartet. They've sort of separated into pairs now, haven't they? So just turning their way through Hawthorne and onto the Derek Minter straight. Leatham again just weaving around as he has done lap after lap after lap, anything to try and distract Peter Hunter. But it was a very short-lived change of position, wasn't it, between the pair of them. Fastest lap of the race is now down to a 1 minute 26.255 from Gilbert Yates. He's still lapping about 0.4 of a second quicker than Pranav Bangala, so the gap is now nearly up to 10 seconds. But for Pranav Bangala, he's very much in his own in second place now, because he might be nearly 10 seconds shy of the race leader, but he's 12.4 seconds up the road from Fedor Samarkov and Paul Simerson, who are still squabbling over third and fourth.
They are indeed. So over the line goes the battle we've been watching all race long. So Mike Dewhurst and John Mark are absolutely together. Peter Hunter is there or thereabouts, watching on as he has been throughout the race, and is, I think, mainly focused on defending from Callum Leatham at the moment, carrying a lot of speed and momentum into the corner with John Markar. Down the hill in towards Graham Hill Bend, they will go once again. Callum Leatham, you can almost sense the frustration. A flash of the lights, dives to the inside, and Peter Hunter, as he jumps on the throttle, got armfuls of oversteer, manages to get the car back under his spell, but Callum Leatham, this time, he's managed to get by.
Yeah, and I think he'll escape his grasp this time as well. Can John Markar get a good run on Mike Dewhurst? Well, it looked as though coming out of Surtees he had got a good run on him, but I don't think it's quite going to happen by the time they get down towards Hawthorne. Well, Mike Dewhurst has had a busy old race, hasn't he? Tried to keep cars behind him, and those cars acting as a buffer with his lead that is still there in Copershell. He'll be ready for a lie down in a darkened room. He'll be very warm and hot and sweaty, having worked terribly hard in this race. They might have to chuck ice over him at the end of this race.
Might have to indeed. Over Sheen Curve they will go, and unfortunately somewhere out there on circuit, I think just coming out of Stirling's, we have managed to lose Paul Simerson. Rotates the car through 100 or about 90 degrees, gets the car back going again after a bit of a half spin, and then Mike Dewhurst, he's all of a sudden, he's got somebody to battle with, hasn't he?
Yes, yeah. Mike Dewhurst all of a sudden isn't now the lead car in the train, so he's now got somebody he can look to try and squeeze his way through, and that really plays into the hands of Fedor Samarkov, who we were saying would be great to see him on the podium for the first time. Well, here he is in third place now, and has 14 seconds of gap between himself and Paul Simerson, who was hounding him all of the way before that small mistake.
And Callum Leatham, you can tell by the body language of the car and eagerness to get on the throttle, the tail wagging. He is all over the tail of John Markar, and that would be a position in class as well. So Callum Leatham has a little look to the inside on the run towards Surtees, gets the car squared away, but doesn't get the position made. And Callum Leatham, he wants to be inside that top five in Trofeo Pirelli.
If he can, that would be good news for him. Mike Dewhurst still soaking up the pressure from John Markar, who has not been able to prise the door open on the car that lies ahead of him, which is the Copershell leader, still running there in fifth place. Callum Leatham gets a good run on John Markar, heading down the Derek Minter straight, and again has to dive on the brakes as John Markar chops across the nose at Westfield Corner. So that's ill-fated attempt again for Callum Leatham, drops him away from the cars he was doing battle with, and starts to put him back into the clutches of Peter Hunter. Really intriguing squabble, this one.
It really is, but again, that mature head, you could see he wasn't 100% confident, so thought, I'd rather back out of the move than go for a move I'm not comfortable with. Paul Simerson, since the half spin, means that Dewhurst has started to fall away somewhat, but Simerson has just expanded that gap over the previous couple of laps. John Markar, I think, more than comfortable riding in the wheel tracks of Mike Dewhurst. Callum Leatham, it seems like he loses a bit of time, but he's straight there again. It'd be interesting to see what he can do in clean air, running around on his own, because he's got the pace, he just can't quite deploy it.
I think you're right. I think Callum Leatham is probably the quicker car that's in that little squabble, but he just can't cleanly work his way through, and if it's not clean, he doesn't want to do it. So that's still very, very mature and sensible driving from somebody that has very little experience in reality and is driving a very, very powerful car. Remember, these are 690 brake horsepower, these cars. So Gilbert Yates, here with 8.5 minutes to go, is about to work his way over the start-finish line, and goes through last time through with an 11.2 second gap between himself and anybody else. That is now 15 laps that he has completed, and he's led every one.
Yes, and the consistency is brilliant. His fastest lap, a 1 minute 26.255. Last time through, a 1 minute 26.615. So to still be, what, the best part of 22 minutes later, and to only be lapping, what, 4/10 slower than the outright fastest lap of the race, which he already holds, is very, very impressive indeed. There's no need for him to push at all, because he's got that 12-second lead, and Pranav Bangala is more than comfortable in that space that he's got between himself, Gilbert Yates and Fedor Samarkov. But unfortunately, we have had a bit of a moment up at Sheen Curve. Involved in that is Joseph Dean, with damage on the front left-hand side of his car, but also involved in that is Paul Dixon, who was having a great little battle as well.
It is, yeah, and 2 cars parked on the very edge of the road there, not in a safe position. Can't quite see the extent of the damage to Paul Dixon, but here's a quick replay, and it's a spin right in the middle of Sheen Curve for Joseph Dean, and because already committed to the apex was Paul Dixon, there was nothing he could do to try and swerve and avoid the car that was right in front of him. Paul Rogers and Darren Howell must have taken a big intake of breath as they swerved to try and avoid the stricken car in the middle of the circuit. 2 cars there in what I would deem is a dangerous position. That will be covered with localised yellows for the moment, but I suspect it may well require a safety car potentially.
Yeah, I would suspect the same as well. Peter Hunter and Callum Leatham picking up where they left off. Peter Hunter was very briefly in front of Callum Leatham, however through Hawthorns, very brave indeed. And Callum Leatham all the way around the outside of Peter Hunter and holds on to what is 7th place overall. But yeah, it is such a shame as the safety car is now deployed.
It is, yeah, so safety car is out there. I'm not surprised because of the position of those cars and the fact that some debris in the middle of the circuit as well, so our marshals are going to have to go to work. I think Paul Dixon's car left the scene.
I thought Paul Dixon's car, it was Joseph Dean's car. He tried to get it back, but simply couldn't. You'd imagine some suspension damage potentially, but yeah, it was a
radiator damage or all-coiler damage, I would have thought as well. Yeah. So safety car out there, they can put their feet up, they can relax a bit, have an ice cream or something, maybe even a choc ice, something like that.
Maybe. Gilbert Yates, however, his 14.3 second lead is going to disappear. So Pranav Vangala, if he has looked after those tyres, and those Pirellis have still got plenty of life left in them, all of a sudden Pranav Vangala can apply pressure onto Gilbert Yates. And Fedor Samarikov can do the same to Pranav Vangala. So much can change now.
Yes, absolutely, yeah, and for poor old Gilbert Yates, you know, all of that hard work, as you say, Pranav Vangala, all of that hard work to try and build an advantage, not be under any pressure, it all changes. One thing we ought to say, and again, she's been like Sherlock Holmes down in the pit lane, Amanda Stretton. There is no stone left unturned by Amanda. Mike Dewhurst, okay, damaged his race 2 tyres in qualifying. He is on the same tyres as he used in race 1 yesterday, Mike Dewhurst, so he's doing a brilliant job to still be leading Coperchel.
Yeah, very, very impressive indeed, and to do so while soaking up pressure from John Markar, Callum Leatham and Peter Hunter, and a very full rear-view camera. Mike Dewhurst doing a fabulous job. I'm sure he's more than happy to let Paul Simerson up the road disappear post-safety car. But now he's got 2 Trofeo Pirelli cars separating himself and the next car that would be chasing him in Coperchel. So Mike Dewhurst just needs to run his own race now.
Yep, that's all he needs to do. Yep, just run his own race and just make sure that he keeps those 2 Trofeo Pirelli cars behind him and keep his fingers crossed that he's got enough life left in those Pirelli tyres, which have worked terribly hard for him and have been superb. So just going to show how, you know, when the chips are down, he can still deliver Mike Dewhurst, but has he got enough left in them to try and fend off John Markar and Callum Leatham? And if they were to get through, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It still keeps him in the lead of Coperchel, but then he has to keep Peter Hunter and Paul Rogers behind. And a few laps behind the safety car, not running at racing speed, is going to help him because he is running out of tyres for sure.
Yes, it will just take an extra couple of laps away effectively from the tyres, or it's an completing laps that he would have completed anyway, albeit not at racing speed, which will help those tyres, as you say, Mark. Pranav Vangala will look to make use of what is remaining of this race by the time the safety car works its way back into the pit lane, and to ensure that he can call upon his Pirellis when required. Fedor Samarikov having a sterling race so far. Paul Simerson, that spin, all of a sudden, it's effectively null and void.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, it means it almost didn't happen, didn't it? Because all of the time that he lost, he's going to go back under the safety car. It was still frustrating, but what he's got to do is, you know, he's experienced enough. Put that out the back of your mind. Yes. Don't worry about it. It's happened. There's nothing you can do now other than focus on the remaining 3 minutes plus an extra lap that are left. And are we going to get any more racing in? I hope so. But what we do need to do is make sure that those cars that are stricken around the circuit are removed from where they are if they're deemed to be in an unsafe position. Take them to a safe position, and only then can we go racing once more.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course all the debris as well that has been swooped up by the ever-efficient Brands Hatch marshals. Gilbert Yates following the Ferrari 296 safety car around, heading through Hawthorns at the moment, and you have to say as well, limiting the amount of Pirellis you get through a weekend really does introduce some strategy as well that maybe you wouldn't normally consider.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, you are limited to just 8 Pirelli slick tyres, so 4 front and 4 rear that need to see you through the free practice sessions, the qualifying sessions and the races. So what they tend to do is divide them up so they have one set one day, one set the other. So for free practice yesterday, for instance, they would have used probably a carryover set that they've used at a previous round, whether it be at Navarra in Spain or at Alton Park. Then they'll bolt the new Pirellis on for qualifying and use those in the race, and it's the same process today. For free practice today, they probably use the tyres that they used in the race yesterday for free practice today, bolt the new ones on for qualifying and use those in the race. So I think we've almost got the cars out of harm's way. We've still got debris though in the middle of the circuit up there at Sheen Curve. We've only got 1:50 remaining on the clock. I'm not entirely convinced this might
get the +1 lap.
Might get the +1, but it's still going to be very tight, isn't it?
It will be indeed, that is for sure. Gilbert Yates will be hoping that we don't. Pranav Vangala will be hoping that we do. Fedor Samarikov, 50-50. There's an opportunity for second. I'm sure he'd settle for third. Of course, his best result. And that's almost hard to believe that his best result is 6th place, because he is deserving of consistent podiums, because he is a very quick driver, is Fedor Samarikov. And I've got a feeling there's going to be some very bright things coming throughout the rest of this season, and some more silverware going his way.
Yeah, so his best overall result was 6th position in the second of the 2 races at Navarra. Other than that, his overall positions have been in the teens, and it has not seen him onto an overall podium at all as yet. So that would be a really, really good end to a weekend where, say, Fedor Samarikov has shown pace in every session. You know, we're not just talking about the race or qualifying, but even in free practice, he's been there all weekend.
Yeah, he really has, and I think that as I say, there will be further silverware awaiting him throughout this season. Gilbert Yates, I mean, nobody can really guess, but you also can guess what he's going to do throughout the rest of this season. You'd imagine more and more pole positions and podiums and wins, but at what point does that start to not necessarily come unravelled, but is somebody there or thereabouts and really applying pressure? Pranav Vangala has given it a brilliant go, and I've got a feeling, having already taken 1 win away from him this year, it could be maybe Pranav or Fedor Samarikov that could do the same, but Paul Simerson just keeps getting quicker and quicker as well.
Yeah, I just don't know. Yeah, Gilbert Yates has had the most consistent pace and just seems to deliver when he needs to. But yeah, I think the rest of the season is not going to be as easy for Gilbert Yates as the early part of it is. And we've still got, after this weekend, we've still got 2 more racing weekends to come in the 2025 Ferrari Challenge UK Championship season, next of which will be at Donington Park on the national circuit on the 26th and the 27th of July. And we'll head to Silverstone and the Grand Prix circuit for our season finale, which will be over the weekend of the 5th, the 6th and the 7th of September. So the clock has ticked to 0. The safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. So great work by the marshals and the recovery crews to clear the incident out of harm's way. So we are going to have a 1-lap sprint, and Gilbert Yates wants to get on with it straight away. And Pranav Vangala, I'm not saying was caught napping, but you'd have thought he'd be closer towards the race leader as they go up towards Paddock Hill Bend for this final lap.
I think safety car was caught napping somewhat. Gilbert Yates absolutely flying, desperate to get this race back underway. Pranav Vangala, well and truly, has dropped away from Gilbert Yates, but I think he's more now worried about Fedor Samarikov in the rear-view camera. Simerson in a somewhat quiet 4th place, just wanting to get to the end of this race. Mike Dewhurst will want to hold on to the lead in Cape Shell. Then you've got John Marcar and Callum Leatham fighting away for 5th and 6th in Trofeo Pirelli, 6th and 7th overall.
Yep, so leader now turns his way out of Surtees, the final lap of the race. He's still got 0.7 of a second gap between himself and Pranav Vangala. There's a similar gap back to Fedor Samarikov, and Paul Simerson looks as though he's destined to finish just off the podium. Cooper Shell still going the way of the number 78 car of Mike Dewhurst from the light blue car of Peter Hunter, and the car with its Dayglow pink flashes in the hands of Paul Rogers. But for Gilbert Yates, it looks as though he is potentially going to be on for what for him would be win number 5 of the championship season. There's only 1 race he hasn't won so far, and that was the second of the 2 races at Navarra. So he is on course to maintain his stranglehold at the sharp end of the championship.
Yeah, and even then, all he did was manage second place, so still a huge haul of points for Gilbert Yates. Mike Dewhurst coming through the final corner in a few moments' time, but it's Gilbert Yates once again, Mark.
It is. Gilbert Yates claims the win in race 6 of the championship season, only just from Pranav van Gardner, and Fedor Samarkov comes through to finish in 3rd place. Paul Simerson 4th. Mike Dewhurst 5th place and picks up another win in Copershell. That won't do his championship aspirations any harm at all. John Markar completes the top 6, and that is a good result for John Markar. That's the 4th time this year he's finished inside the top 6 in a race overall. Callum Leatham in 7th place. Peter Hunter 8th, who will finish 2nd in Copershell, and Paul Rogers in reality will complete the Copershell podium, finishing in 9th place. Darren Howe 10th. Say insert in 11th place, and of course we know of the incidents that befell Joseph Dean, who had the spin, and the unfortunate Paul Dixon, who couldn't swerve in time to avoid the stricken car in the middle of Sheen Curve. So, interesting race, that one. Some good battles throughout the order, and I particularly like the fact that we've now got some of the quicker Copershell cars really mixing it in with the Trofeo Pirelli cars, and good interclass battles there.
Yeah, it's nice to see that there isn't such a visual gulf between the classes. They do have a blending point, and that blending point is now becoming rather prominent. Mike Dewhurst, John Markar, Callum Leatham, Peter Hunter, all scrapping away with each other. That's 2 Copershell drivers, 2 Trofeo Pirelli drivers, and I have to say, driver of the weekend for me is Paul Simerson, to openly say you want to be pushed up a class, but to then go out there and prove and show why you wanted that, and do so competitively. Very well done.
Yeah, it shows that absolutely that was the right thing for him to do. He's not the only driver that's bounced around the classics. Paul Hogarth did it, went from Copershell to Pirelli and then went back to Copershell again. But for Paul Simerson, yeah, it's been a good first weekend for him. But for Mike Dewhurst, he will be absolutely delighted with another win in Copershell. So he finished runner-up in the Copershell Championship to Robert Rees, who is now living out in Dubai and no doubt watching all of this unfold. So Mike Dewhurst is looking good at the midway point of the 2025 championship season as the cars peel their way in towards the pit lane. And is Mike Dewhurst going to take over the Copershell Championship crown from the 2024 champion Robert Rees? We'll find out only, of course, once we head away from the final weekend of racing at Silverstone, which, as I say, is going to be the first weekend of September. So the cars making their way in towards the pit lane area, and we can shortly also confirm some results for you, I'm sure, as well. So there goes Gilbert Yates, comes to a halt and is about to hop out of the car. And first thing he does is congratulate his team and, of course, his driver coach, Tom Fleming, who embraces him. Good to see. Those two have worked really well together in the last year or so, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. They've bonded well, because that's important as well, not just being told what to do by a pro driver, but also have a good relationship with them. You can see them both smiling down in the pit lane, and it will be a win for them both. Jumping out of the car as well, Mike Dewhurst, he's going to be over the moon.
He is, yeah. Ed Bridle is his driver coach, and there we go. There's the embrace between those two. So, again, just going to show you there, it's delivering not just for yourself, it's delivering for the people that support you as well, and it means so much to them all as well. So we can see the drivers are down there in the pit lane. I can see that Dave Richardson has put his thumb up down there in the pit lane as well, which means we could probably have a chat to some of our winners and get some reaction. Dave.
Thank you so much, Mark. Well, as yesterday, I'm grabbing Mike literally before he's even had time to remove his crash helmet, his hands device, and of course safety balaclava as well. Mike, Ed Bridle, your driver coach, was saying it's actually more nerve-wracking, Dave, to be a driver coach than actually to be out there on the track. But Mike has just driven a brilliant race.
No, thanks for that. Yeah, that was a bit of a tough one, that. We had off in qualifying for pole, but that shredded the tyres on the gravel, so I had to start on yesterday's race tyres. So the tyres were pretty much done from the start. So there was a lot of sliding around, a lot of defending. It was pretty close stuff, yeah.
Well, we'd heard that. Yeah. However, it's come from your mouth now, and it's absolutely official. So you were doing that on very, very used rubber, which makes it even more remarkable, Mike.
Yeah, I'm really pleased, yeah. I mean, the guys, they gave me a new one on the front left.
Oh, that's kind.
The qualifying one. That survived, so that was the hardest tyre that takes the most pounding around here. But there was no traction out the slow corner, so, yeah, it was just, yeah, hang on, be brave. It was good. Really.
Many congratulations, Mike Dewhurst.
Thanks very much, cheers.
So there we have it then, straight from the horse's mouth. We'd kind of heard that rumour that he was on that rubber, but it's absolutely confirmed from Mike Dewhurst. What a race from him, guys.
Even more impressive that he was able to do it. Yeah, that harmless spin, you know, so no damage to the car with the result of the spin in qualifying, Jack, but the consequence that comes with it.
Yes, and to it just makes it that much more impressive, doesn't it? Because normally you can enter the race going, I need to look after these tyres, and Mike Dewhurst had a bit more of a worry than that. However, I'm sure we can head down to the pit lane now with Amanda Stretton and our overall race winner.
Absolutely, here with Gilbert. What a race. I mean, we were wondering whether or not that safety car was going to just lead directly into the checkered flag, or if you were going to get a final lap of racing. What was going through your mind?
I wanted it to finish on the safety car, obviously, because I'd done in my mind, I had a good race up to that point, and then you're always a bit cautious when there's a safety car out. Someone gets a restart better than you.
But you had such a commanding lead before that. Were you feeling quite comfortable?
Yeah, I was comfortable in the lead, but I had a small sleep before the race, and I woke up quite nervous for some reason. And then Tom was like, it's Sunday, just go and do a Sunday drive. And I just totally focused, and I was quite surprised with the lead. But I asked him for gaps, and he stopped giving them after a while.
Now, listen, we were talking after qualifying, and you were saying how, you know, this streak that you're on, you feel like it's giving you even more pressure. Is that how you feel now moving forwards as well? Because you know, you seem to be the man to beat. We're all expecting to see you at the front.
I don't know. Look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of young drivers out there. I'm just out for a bit of fun. Yes, I've got 14 poles in a row and I'm winning quite a few races, but I'm just enjoying myself, and it is what it is.
14 poles in a row, though, sounds good.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I would like to finish the season with poles, but that's a bit more pressure there than the racing. Yeah.
Well, listen, Gilbert Yates, many congratulations. I'll let you go down and enjoy the champagne.
Just out there for fun. That's a bit of an understatement, isn't it? That man wants to win everything, and you wouldn't bet against him winning the rest of it. But I so think he'll end up with a slightly more difficult second part of the season. Let's confirm some results for you then, following the race that we've just seen. Gilbert Yates claims the win, his 5th out of the 6 races we've had so far this season. He finished exactly 1 second ahead of Pranav Vangala, and 3rd with his first podium of the season was Fedor Samrakov. Paul Simerson finished in 4th place, and Mike Dewhurst took top honours in Copa Shell, coming home in 5th. John Marcar and Callum Leatham had a good squabble. They finished 6th and 7th place, and Peter Hunter in 8th was the 2nd of the Copa Shell cars home, just ahead of Paul Rogers, who will complete our Copa Shell podium, and Darren Howell, who completed the top 10. Then as we head to 11th position, in 11th place, it was Hussein Sert that finished in 11th position, and he will be the last of our finishers because we know of the problems for Joseph Dean and Paul Dixon. So that is the result. Let's just look back at some of the highlights from the race. So when the race got underway, Gilbert Yates led the charge up towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time, with Pranav Vangala trying to brave it out around the outside, but that left him vulnerable on the inside to Fedor Samrakov, who squeezed his way through. Pranav with a decisive move up the inside going into Graham Hill Bend. On the first lap, there was a little bit of contact between himself and Fedor Samrakov, who dropped from 2nd down into 3rd, and he was then nearly picked off by Paul Simerson as well. Callum Leatham had a great charge from the tail end of the field following his problems in qualifying. Made good progress in the early stages, but then just seemed to plateau. Paul Simerson was really hounding Fedor Samrakov until he ran a little bit wide coming over the start-finish line, and that dropped him away. But Mike Dewhurst was involved in a brilliant battle. John Marcar, Peter Hunter and Callum Leatham were together for the vast majority of the race. And Mike Dewhurst, as we've just heard from him down in the pit lane, was doing all of this on the tyres that he used in yesterday's race, because he had spoilt his race tyres for today with that spin and an off into the gravel trap. Peter Hunter was attacked by Callum Leatham, briefly lost the position, but regained it a few laps later on. But for Gilbert Yates, he was just pushing and building the lead advantage and looked very, very comfortable in the lead of the race. The lead extending all of the time. The squabbles were continuing further back, Callum Leatham finally getting past Peter Hunter. But then, of course, we had that brief safety car period. The race would get underway, but only for a single lap sprint, and Gilbert Yates would come through to claim the win. So there we go. That's the highlights for the race that we have just seen. Gilbert Yates this weekend has had the pace, Jack. Pranav Vangala is not that far away from him as yet, but we're only just past the halfway point of the season. I think it will tighten up, as I've said.
Yeah, I mean, Gilbert Yates picking up where he left off at Alton Park, 2 class poles, 2 wins, and that has just allowed him to extend his championship margin. So on 101 points now, Gilbert Yates. Pranav Vangala 2nd in the championship, 22 points adrift. Callum Leatham, after a good weekend here at Brands Hatch, holds on to 3rd place. John Marcar holds on to 4th. Fedor Samrakov, after a brilliant result has managed to leapfrog the absent Balsidou, and he's up into 5th place. Balsidou down to 6th. 7th place is Paul Simerson, up 3 places, followed then by Hemandra Pillai and Oscar Rinjovic in 9th place. Joseph Dean, after a weekend or a final race of the weekend to forget, will hold on to 10th.
Yep, and in Copa Shell, I think we can probably just have a quick look at the points, but we might just have to leave that for the moment. Pick up on that in a few moments, because I think we can go down to Dave Richardson and our first podium.
Here we go then, down here in the sunshine as it comes out through the cloud now for the first of our podiums today, Sunday. Ferrari Challenge UK Trofeo Pirelli, first of all. Give it up, taking P3. Here comes Fedor Samarukov. Well done, Fedor. Taking P2, it's Pranav Vangala. And on the top step of the podium, Gilbert Yates. And of course, there is a Copa Team Trophy to be awarded as well, and that will be awarded to Charles Hurst, a representative from Charles Hurst here to take to the podium also. Our trophies this afternoon presented by Federico Pastorelli, Ferrari North Europe Regional Manager. Thank you, Federico, who makes the trophy presentation. First of all to Fedor Samarukov, taking P3, P2 Pranav Vangala, and a burgeoning mantelpiece of Gilbert Yates with the P1 trophies as he takes yet another one. And of course, the Copa Team Trophy will be presented to Charles Hurst. And heck, we're not done yet, because Giuliano Irizio from Pirelli Motorsport will make the Pirelli Trophy also to Gilbert Yates. And right now, our team of photographers here will instruct the drivers where to place said trophies ahead of the photos. As you can see and sense the eagerness to get hold of the bubbly as all the drivers get onto the top step of the podium. Big smiles all round. Well done to Gilbert, to Pranav, and also to Fedor, who's going to win the champagne race. In my opinion, it was Pranav, but there, it was really, really close to call. So there we have it. Our Trofeo Pirelli podium is done. Once again, congratulations to P3, Fedor Samarukov, P2, Pranav Vangala, and P1, Gilbert Yates. So we will clean up the podium then, and it will be Copa Shell, of course, next, and we'll see the recipients of the trophies from our Copa Shell competition, which has been awesome this afternoon, and again, full of drama. So we are ready, the bubbly is placed. Taking P3 for Ferrari Challenge Copa Shell, here comes Paul Rogers. It's P2 this afternoon for Peter Hunter. And on the top step of the podium, boy, he had to work for it, Mike Dewhurst. And of course, there will be a Copa Team Trophy awarded to the dealer Dick Lovett Swindon. Once again, the trophies will be presented by Federico Pastorelli, our North Europe Regional Manager from Ferrari. Paul Rogers in receipt of his trophy. Peter Hunter in receipt of P2. And Mike Dewhurst then gets the P1 trophy. And of course, Dick Lovett Swindon in receipt of the Copa Team's trophy as well. Listen out for the instructions from the photographers, drivers, if you will. You'll note how sprint-like Richard from Dick Lovett legged it from the podium. And who's going to be the first with the champagne? Whoa! With a speed hitherto unseen with regards to the celebrations, it was definitely Paul Rogers. So There we have it. The podium's done, both for Trofeo Pirelli and Copa Shell. Back to Mark Werrell right now.
Thanks, Dave. Yep, so well done on the podiums. One thing we do need to pick up on is what the championship points look like in Copa Shell, because we've given you the championship points for Trofeo Pirelli. Mike Dewhurst leads the championship still and now has a 12-point gap between himself and Peter Hunter, having extended it slightly today. And Paul Simerson, of course, who has now moved from Copa Shell to Trofeo Pirelli, actually sits third in the championship, but only just ahead of Paul Rogers, who we've just seen on the podium for the second time this weekend, who's fourth. The absent Stephen Dobson is now in fifth place, with Darren Howell in sixth. Paul Dixon, Hussein Sert, Johnny Satchel and Sean Rann complete the top 10 in Copa Shell as we leave Brands Hatch and look forward to our next weekend of racing, which will be coming up at Donington Park very, very shortly. So from everybody here at Brands Hatch, from Ferrari Challenge UK, from Amanda Stretton and Dave Richardson down in the pit lane, Jack Werrell, myself, Mark Werrell up in the commentary box. Thanks for joining us this weekend. We'll see you next time for the next round of Ferrari Challenge UK. Goodbye.